So, you want to be an instructor from Hogwarts. You want to have an insufficient apprentice as your cohort and end every level by expelling your student? I can't wait to show you how.
Dun 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 dun. B-sides!
Hello, and welcome to Pathfinder B-Sides. I am your host, Professor Phoenix, and today we're going to be going over the Instructor Archetype for the Wizard class. As always, let's take a look at the flavor text that's provided on the D20 PFSRD. And as a quick side note, be sure to subscribe for more sweet archetype knowledge as well as other rule set information. But hey, now back to the flavor. Whether serving as staff at a formal school of magic or simply acting as a wandering teacher, an instructor has an apprentice who trades service to the instructor for lessons in magic. What this says to me is, you're going to have someone following you around all the time that has to practice utility spells so you don't have to. Or they could have all of the slots set to fireball while you have your mind set to more utilitarian matters. Or maybe warding or abjurations. Either way, they could shore up your weak spots. Now, I know what you're thinking. How the hell are you supposed to have a cohort when your charisma is probably your dump stat? We'll get that covered for you too. But let's move on to the first ability. Apprentice. At first level, an instructor acquires the services of a loyal apprentice. She functions similarly to a cohort, though your apprentice begins as a first level commoner with magical aptitude as their first level feat, and NPC scores that are 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8 before racial modifiers. When the instructor reaches the third level, if his leadership score is at least 2, the apprentice becomes a first level wizard of the same school specialization as the instructor, and she gains heroic ability scores. That's a 15, a 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8 before racial modifiers. The apprentice never gains item creation feats, but otherwise follows the normal rules for a cohort. Each time the instructor gains a level, he may dismiss his existing apprentice as graduated or expelled, depending on her performance, and gain a new cohort following the same rules. If an apprentice dies in service to the instructor takes a -2 penalty to his leadership score. This penalty is reduced by 1 for every level the instructor gains after the death to a minimum of 0. Because cohorts are most interested in the instructor's magical ability, the instructor uses his intelligence modifier rather than charisma to determine his leadership score. At 7th level, an instructor may select the leadership feat using his intelligence modifier to determine his leadership score. But doing so only provides followers, never a second cohort. This ability replaces Arcane Bond. So, it seems we're looking at having a cohort with not the best ability scores, but to be fair, we don't want them for their high DCs. We have them for their ability to buff, or maybe distract. Either way, that's the mechanic side of this. They grow based on your intelligence for your leadership score. Try not to lose any cohorts to death, unless you have that as a running gag with your GM, and you should be fine. Flavor-wise, you could always have them as never being good enough to be taught by you. Maybe they tend to find other wizards that they think are better teachers than you. Maybe all of the ones you release from your service come back to fight you later. Either way, seems like it could be useful for your GM to use this stuff for your stories. Keep in mind, you're giving up a familiar for a weaker spellcaster with his own spell list, spellbook, and shenanigans. I feel like, in many cases, this is worth it. Next up, we've got Trained Teamwork. Starting at 5th level, the instructor can take a teamwork feat as his wizard bonus feat. As long as his apprentice is within 60 feet, the apprentice gains all such teamwork feats as bonus feats. The apprentice does not have to meet the feat's prerequisites. This ability modifies the bonus feats gained at 5th, 10th, 15th, and 20th level. So, at first glance, it feels like this is pretty lame, until you realize you still have access to all your other possible feats like meta magics and item creation feats. This doesn't extend to your apprentice, unfortunately, unless they're in your circle, right? But to be fair, that's fine. A few teamwork feats to be mindful of include Allied Spellcaster, which gives you a bonus to spell penetration and caster levels as long as your apprentice is adjacent to you. Cooperative counterspelling is swank for magical artillery teams, and you even get a bonus if you both use Dispel Magic. Probably the best teamwork feat for two arcane casters you control has to be Elemental Co-Mixture, which has too many possibilities to list here, but I'll leave a link to it in the description. Shielded Caster is good if you need help with your concentration checks, but at that point, why not just cast defensively? I'm sure there are other spellcasting teamwork feat combos out there, and don't forget to let your apprentice take the teamwork feats as well, so you don't have to keep to that within 60 rule, because what if you're flying up in the sky and they're not? I mean, what if you're just too far away and suddenly you can't both, Ghostbusters the thing you're trying to murder? I'm just saying. And finally, now for the moment you've been waiting for, my opinion and how to weave this into your world. I like this for a competent player. You don't have to have the most experience playing a wizard, but you should absolutely be mindful of how much time you're going to take on your turn. Feel free to have your apprentice shadow the instructor as you run your wizard as normal. Also, be sure to speak with your GM about how they can roll your apprentice into the story. If you're going to be on the road often, you may not have the ability to change apprentices often. If you're in a city campaign, maybe you can be a part of a big brother, organization kind of deal. There are many ways to play this, but the most important is to not mismanage your time. Know what spells your cohort will prepare in advance before the game takes place that session. Talk with the GM to see if they will run the NPC and social interactions, or if that's expected for you to be doing so. It can be weird to have NPCs talk with each other, taking away your spotlight. Also, with mismanaged time, combat can slow to a halt while you're figuring out which spell slot you've already used and what DCs to plan around. Ultimately, I like this archetype very much. If properly utilized, it could be a strong 7 out of 10. But with all the possible pitfalls involved with play, as well as oversaturation of combat and bloating of the party, it could be more of a hindrance than a help. Not to mention, there are other archetypes that make for stronger field of play. Any archetype that relies too heavily on someone else isn't going to be the best out there, in my opinion. Unless you're a summoner, in which case that's kind of the whole class. But we're not talking about the summoner right now. Now for the wonderful announcements. First off, I'd like to thank some of the people who are currently donating to the channel each month on Patreon. Maddie Boombalatti, Rob Aspinwall, and Eric K. You guys give me the drive I need to continue researching and putting together better content. If you want to contribute, the link to the Patreon is in the description, as is the link to the Discord. If you'd rather come by and talk smack with us or get direct answers for how valid an archetype is, could be. There's also a Facebook group that is updated long before YouTube even thinks about letting you guys know I released a video. I'm just saying. Speaking of video release times, feel free to subscribe and hit that bell so you too can be aware of when a video drops. Finally, I'm on Twitter a bit, but honestly, the best place to come talk smack with me is on Discord or during our games that are streamed on Platonic D's Twitch. Link in the description. That's it, man. You guys take it easy and keep gaming.